Welcome to your Houston Rewind for the first full week of September. I'm KHU 11 digital anchor Brandi Smith. Kids have homework, fall sports are going again. There's a lot happening, which means you probably don't get a chance to watch every story we tell here at KHU 11. Consider this your invitation to catch up. Let's rewind. Planning a vigil for a lost friend isn't something high schoolers should have to do, but on Monday, students at Ball High School were working on one for Mason Nelson. He died last Friday when police say a man just paroled for his third DWI conviction crashed into the Jeep Mason was riding in. Lauren Talarico explained why the state's 3 strikes law wasn't applied in this case.
The suspect is Keith Brazier, and police believe alcohol was a factor in this crash. Court records show he had only been paroled that day after serving just a fraction of his jail time. This is Mason Nelson.
All around loving kid.
He loved baseball, his friends and family.
He was just such a sweet kid.
And they loved him too. But on Friday, the 14-year-old was killed in front of his high school. Court documents show that same day, 28-year-old Keith Brazier was let out on parole from Huntsville after serving 1/3 of his sentence for his third DWI conviction. Just hours later, police believe he'd been drinking when he crashed this Toyota SUV into a Jeep in front of Galveston's Ball High School, killing Mason Nelson and injuring other students as they left baseball practice.
I think that all the parties involved in this case made an oversight of deadly proportions here.
Records show that over 10 years, Brazier faced 11 charges, including possession, evading arrest, assault, and 3 DWI convictions.
So often you hear this phrase, 3 strikes, you're out. What does that mean?
KHOU legal analyst Carmen Rowe.
So in Texas, 3 strikes you're out means that you have been charged with and convicted of 3 felony convictions.
When somebody is convicted of a DWI, is it always a felony?
Not at all. DWIs in Texas are generally a misdemeanor for your first and second DWI.
Brazier had 3 DWI convictions, but only 1 was a felony. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, but only served 11 months and was paroled.
It's shocking that he would be offered a deal like that, given his criminal history.
Tonight, Brazier is charged with murder and has a $500,000 bond. If convicted this time, he faces 25 years to life in prison. Meanwhile, counselors will be on hand tomorrow at Ball High School to help students. I'm Lauren Talarico, KHOU 11 News.
2 weeks since the so-called Texas trigger law went into effect, making it a felony for providers to offer abortion care, Janelle Bludau broke down how a new lawsuit aims to restore access.
That lawsuit was filed in the same week that the Texas trigger ban took effect. Those behind it are hoping it will allow them to continue their main mission of funding abortions. More than 500 miles from Houston, New Mexico has become a destination for Texas women seeking abortion. But the help to get there is now much harder to find.
Lilith Fund and Texas Equal Access Fund were forced to pause our direct funding of abortion care because of the threats that we've been receiving.
Anna Rodriguez is the campaigns director for both the Lilith Fund and Texas Equal Access Fund. Before the Supreme Court decision came down in June, both groups were providing financial support to help Texas women seek an abortion. Today, they've stopped all funding.
Essentially, they're saying that they can use these laws to criminalize anyone who helps a Texan access abortion care, even if that means helping them pay for their procedure out of this state.
But they're hoping a new lawsuit can give them some protection.
We're not able to do what some of our core basic mission is.
A number of funds are suing Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and other Texas prosecutors, hoping they'll get a court to declare the trigger ban cannot be enforced in a manner that violates their rights to freely travel, freely associate, freely speak, and freely support members of their communities through financial assistance.
It's about protecting our right to free speech, free association, and our right to travel across states.
And abortion access out of state may become more abundant, at least in New Mexico. Last week, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed an executive order directing $10 million for a new abortion clinic in Doña Ana County, which borders El Paso. But traveling there can add up, which is why Rodriguez, along with several other funds, hope they can resume services as soon as possible.
We want to be here for the people who need us, and we hope that the courts will be on our side so that we can do that.
We have reached out to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton for a comment on the lawsuit. We are still waiting to hear back.
The Houston pastor accused of using the pulpit for politics doubled down on his controversial statements last weekend. So on Monday, we took a closer look at the crime stats Pastor Ed Young used to say Houston is arguably the most dangerous city in America. Ugochi Iloka dug into the numbers.
Second Baptist Church pastor Dr. Ed Young said in a weekly email to his congregation that he got those crime statistics that he found from bestplaces.net to back up the following claim.
Houston arguably is one of, if not the most dangerous city in America, and that is a tragedy.
He says he compared Houston and Chicago based on collected FBI data too. The crime index ranges violent crimes in 4 offenses: murder, non-negligent manslaughter, and aggravated assault. Numbers from multiple law enforcement agencies showed violent crime in Houston is down. But based on the numbers Dr. Young compiled, violent crime in Houston is 2 times the national average.
Chicago on this scale is 49.9. Houston is ahead, 50.4 in violent crime. The average in the United States for violent crime is 22.7. We are more than average violent crime in our city.
Yesterday, Mayor Turner told KHOU 11 News that we've accurately reported the numbers in the city of Houston, along with HPD and Crime Stoppers. Mayor Turner went on to say, though, he can't stop people from saying Houston is the most dangerous city in America, even though he says it's not. After reaching out multiple times to the church and Pastor Young, they both declined to comment. Reporting in West Houston, Ugochi Iloka, KHOU 11 News.
Students in Uvalde returned to class on Tuesday for the first time since the May 24th shooting at Robb Elementary. It was a difficult and emotional day for families, some who said the district wasn't ready for kids to come back. Anayeli Ruiz was there.
Well, the start of the school was delayed as the school district scrambled to make safety adjustments, including fencing and cameras. But some say that wasn't enough. The back-to-school excitement lost, ripped away from the Uvalde community.
It's never going to be the same for them.
The anxiety and fear many have can be seen in their teary eyes.
Nervous, really nervous.
This mother holding on to her baby as she drops him off for his first day of school.
There are kids, you want them safe.
But it's yet another painful day for those 21 families who lost a loved one. Uzziah's uncle Brett Cross, who was raising him, shared a picture of his ashes, saying this is Uzziah's first day of school pic. Emery Jo Garza's mom sharing this picture of her daughter's gravesite today.
And you see all these people putting pictures of their kids going back to school, and our kids aren't.
Some of those families choosing not to send their kids in person because they don't feel safe. They say the officers who never acted weren't held accountable, and changing the scenery won't fix it.
Having the same person in there expecting different results, they failed to do their job.
But trying to return to a sense of normalcy is hard. Their schools are surrounded by an 8-foot fence and state troopers. And they say all they can do now is pray. Pray their kids make it home safe every day.
But let's leave it to God.
I guess you can just pray that
everything will be okay for our kids. I have a lot of faith in God, so.
Well, the school district did send out some attendance numbers today. They say over 3,700 students showed up today. That's over 88% of the anticipated enrollment. In Uvalde, Anayeli Ruiz, KHOU 11 News.
Support for Uvalde stretched far beyond the small town. Texans from all over wore maroon and white to honor and salute those students, parents, and teachers. When words fail, images like these somehow fill the silence. They come from all over the state, from the major hubs like Houston, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio, and from towns that dot the map in the Panhandle, North Texas, Central Texas, West Texas, East Texas, and South Texas. They come from students and teachers and whole schools. They come from parents and anyone else who wants their counterparts in Uvalde to know they are not alone. Hundreds of images carrying a single message. We are Uvalde strong. Those were just some of the hundreds of photos you sent to us. You can see more of them in this article on khou.com. On Tuesday, Katy ISD responded to a viral video documenting racially insensitive taunts made at a high school volleyball game. That game was last Friday between Pato and Jordan. Jason Miles spoke to one mother who thinks the game should be forfeited. And just a warning, we are blurring the video because it shows minors and the noises may make you uncomfortable.
Look no further than Lakeisha Adams' front porch.
She's been playing about 5 years.
For evidence of her daughter Devon's love of volleyball.
And she plays at a competitive level as well as club ball.
But she says they've never encountered what happened last Friday during a match between Devon's Pato varsity team and host Jordan High School.
So at one point we started hearing noises and we're like, what is that?
That turned out to be something she considers racially insensitive. Coming from where she says Jordan students were seated.
So it was a little faint at first and then it got louder. And that's when we started to record and they were making monkey sounds when our girls were serving.
A student who records matches for the Pato team.
Why are they making monkey sounds?
Reacted as she rolled.
That's indicative of racism.
Katy ISD shared an email sent to Pato families after Adams' video was viewed thousands of times on social media. It calls the behavior inappropriate and not in line with the values of the district, which is committed to an inclusive environment. No word on if Jordan administrators have identified any students involved. Meantime, Adams believes the match Pato ended up losing should be played again without interference.
I will be honest, I feel that that game needs to be forfeited and put into a neutral location.
Katy ISD released another statement the next day saying it identified some of the students. You can read both statements in this article on khou.com. On Wednesday, we heard from the organization that runs Minute Maid Park about the conditions after Bad Bunny held 2 shows there. The field was pretty banged up, requiring repairs, but Brittany Ford shared that wasn't the only concern from fans.
This is a look inside Minute Maid Park Friday night as Puerto Rican reggaeton artist Bad Bunny took to the stage in front of a sold-out crowd. It follows baseball fans Monday taking to social media complaining about the stadium's field conditions. The Harris County Houston Sports Authority, who landlords Minute Maid Park, says the team is addressing the issue.
I did hear some news about the grass being beat up, and I did get a couple calls about that. Spoke to them, was assured that by postseason the grass would be replaced, and they are working to fix that grass.
The Astros say turf repairs were already in the works prior to the concert series and are scheduled to begin next week. They also addressed structural concerns seen in this video. The team says the bleachers were designed to move, and what is seen in the video is the structure functioning as designed. Brittany Ford, KHOU 11 News.
Lady Gaga is performing at Minute Maid next Tuesday. We're told the grass will be replaced after that. Motorcycles took over trails meant only for pedestrians and bikes last weekend. Jason Miles talked to witnesses who watched 30 to 40 ride through Buffalo Bayou Park.
On miles of winding trails meant only for people and bicycles.
I was coming back from a walk or run.
Evan Lewis first heard the engines before seeing these motorcycles pass him by in Buffalo Bayou Park.
Without overestimating, probably between 30 and 40 of these little motorcycles coming down the trail behind me.
Taking up the entire trail, where he got a quick video while trying to get out of the way.
I don't think they were really looking where they were going, and there were a couple of tight turns and some hills where even if you come around too fast on a bike, right, you can come on someone pretty quickly.
There are signs like this posted throughout the park reminding visitors that motorized vehicles are not allowed, including electric bikes or scooters, which are much more of an issue.
But the motorcycles were
really a shocker.
Karen Farber is Vice President of External Affairs for Buffalo Bayou Partnership. That's the organization that manages the park and strongly discourages people from not following the rules, which in many cases may also be violations of city ordinances.
What those riders were doing was terribly unsafe on trails that house bikes and pedestrians.
Lewis says he posted his video on social media.
I don't know where they got off because they passed me.
To, if nothing else, make people aware.
You know, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I just think that there already aren't enough safe spaces to run or to cycle in town. So I'd just like to keep the spaces that are safe now, safe for cyclists and runners.
The park says security will be on heightened alert regarding motorcycles on the trails, which is something prohibited in most other parks as well. On Wednesday, we learned about unexpected encounters Sugar Land neighbors are having with wildlife. At least 2 people say gators bit their boats in Oyster Creek. Matt Dougherty explained how trappers stepped up to help.
Not far from this spot, there are signs posted which read, "Alligator trapping is currently in progress." Rowers aren't sure why this is happening, but they say it is frightening.
I've been rowing over 20 years in this body of water, and we've never had a alligator attack.
Dee Connors is the president of the Greater Houston Rowing Club. She says the problem started about 2 weeks ago when a man in his 80s was rowing early in the morning.
One day he hit the alligator with his oar. On the second day, the alligator came up and chomped the end of his boat, and his boat started sinking, but he made it to shore. And he had to walk with his boat for about a mile. Nobody was hurt.
That attack happened behind the Lifetime Fitness. Here's a picture of the man's boat. You can clearly see the teeth marks in the jagged hole. Last week, it happened again.
And another one of the rowers was just rowing out behind me, and another alligator chomped the end of his boat. He didn't get it as hard as the first one, so he just rowed to the shore.
And this is what happened to that man's boat. Rower Kristen Klein cruises right past an alligator in this video clip. You probably missed it, so we're slowing down the video. Nobody's sure what might be making the alligators act this way. Some say vegetation along the banks of Oyster Creek has been cleared, possibly exposing their nests. Dee Connors says First Colony's HOA has enlisted the help of the game warden and trappers to hunt down the aggressive animal. They've caught one so far, but rowers fear it may not have been the only one.
They got one of the gators, but the second bite happened after that gator was picked up, so they may have gotten the wrong gator, or there's another aggressive gator.
In Sugar Land, I'm Matt Dougherty, KHOU 11 News.
Also out in Fort Bend County, a neighbor says a pack of coyotes got into her backyard and grabbed her French bulldog. By the time her husband saw what happened, she says it was too late. Another homeowner in nearby Pecan Grove shared this video with us, showing a coyote jumping over a 6-foot fence. It shows just how easily they can get into your backyard. So here are some tips from Texas game wardens about what to do if you encounter a coyote. First, do not feed them. Keep pet food and water inside and have garbage bags securely tied. Also keep bird feeders cleaned and elevated or hanging above ground. Coyotes can either be drawn to the seeds or the other critters attracted to bird food. Finally, use noise-making devices to scare them away. On Thursday, the Houston community said its final goodbyes to a law enforcement officer killed 2 weeks ago. Someone shot Harris County Precinct 3 Deputy Constable Omar Ursin while he was driving home after picking up food for his family. Ron Trevino showed us how family and friends celebrated Deputy Ursin's life.
Remembering an officer of the law who was a husband, father, and son.
He will forever be in our family through the memories we have to cherish. To the Erson family, please know that you will always remain in our family.
Family, friends, and fellow officers honoring Deputy Constable Omar Ursin, gathering at Inspire Church in North Houston. Ursin was only 37 years old. A Channelview native, he had been on the force for 6 years. Before entering the police academy, he had volunteered with youth programs and mentored foster kids.
And again and again and again, I've heard what a committed family man he was. And we honor that about him and the role model that he was to all of us.
On Sunday, August 28th, he had just left his favorite restaurant with dinner for his family. He was not in uniform and was in his own car when he was shot and killed on his way home. The motive is unclear, but investigators believe the shots were fired as the cars were in front of Westlake Middle School in Atascocita. The shooter was in a newer model dark sedan with tinted windows.
Omar's light will forever shine bright. I love you, little brother. Rest in peace.
Investigators need assistance in this case. Contact the Harris County Sheriff's Office if you can help.
The Harris County Jail is being ordered to make some changes after being found out of compliance. State jail inspectors found dozens of people sat around too long waiting to be processed. Zack Tawatari found the issues date all the way back to Hurricane Harvey.
The sheriff's office says that pending criminal cases have swelled since Hurricane Harvey, and it's only been made worse by the pandemic. They're trying to get inmates housed elsewhere, but right now, the jail is simply overcrowded. It's a growing problem that's been growing for some time now, a backlog of cases, particularly at the felony level, that the Harris County Sheriff's Office says is creating a major logjam.
We're seeing every day more people coming into the jail than are leaving.
The Sheriff's Office releasing a statement on Thursday saying the Texas Commission on Jail Standards has placed the Harris County Jail in non-compliance status. Jail inspectors found that people had spent more than the maximum of 48 hours in the booking area's holding cells. HCSO says the problem dates back to Hurricane Harvey, which shut down criminal courthouse operations and meant cases couldn't be processed at the same rate, a problem that was only made worse by the pandemic.
Hearings stopped happening. Trials stopped happening. There was no more jury trials.
In turn, the jail's population has increased, the sheriff's office says. There are over 10,000 people housed in the jail, the first time they say the population has been that high in a decade. HCSO says they're sending 600 inmates to a jail in Louisiana and have signed a contract to send an additional 600 defendants to a facility in North Texas.
The bottom line is we have more people still coming into the jail every day than are leaving, and we're just at the breaking point.
The countdown is on. We are less than 8 months away from Houston hosting college basketball's biggest event, the men's Final Four. KHU 11 partnered with the NCAA to host a citywide reading competition, and Michelle Choi was at Thursday's kickoff.
These kiddos are ready to make the shot. At reading, that is.
I'm just excited to read books, honestly.
I want to make my brain more stronger. Well, I think it's amazing, and I do like reading a lot.
Today, hundreds of third graders joined the NCAA and the Houston Local Organizing Committee for a pep rally at the Houston Public Library to celebrate the launch of Read to the Final Four. A citywide literacy challenge, more than 39,000 third grade students from 11 Houston area school districts are taking part in. All this leading up to the 2023 NCAA Men's Final Four, which you can watch on KHOU 11.
It's just awesome that we can get so many schools and the city of Houston behind the Final Four.
A reading initiative that started in Houston back in 2016, from story time to live music, basketball games, and more. This morning's kickoff event was a slam dunk, emceed by our very own KHOU 11 morning news anchor, Dave Freilich.
Everybody out here, make a little noise if you've had any fun so far.
Dave's also a big fan of reading.
You can get a kid excited about that early on. Hopefully they'll stay excited their whole life about it. Who knows where it'll take them.
To inspire kids to read is one of the main purposes of this competition.
We know at the third grade level that when going into fourth grade, you can't learn if you can't read. And so we just want to make sure that we give them a love for it and that we tell them we're excited. And it's really more than a competition. It's just, this is going to help them for life.
So how will this all play out? It'll be a tournament-style reading competition. Third grade students from each participating school will work in teams and earn points based on the average minutes read.
It will be millions of minutes.
Top schools will then advance throughout the rounds, winning prizes. The official competition tips off in November.
And then over the holidays, we will seed them in brackets, just like they do for the Final Four. So we'll have the divisions, and we're super excited that KHOU is going to be carrying those bracket announcements.
A challenge these third graders are ready to take on and dance their way to the top. Michelle Choi, KHOU 11 News.
You can learn more about the Read to Final Four challenge in this KHOU.com article. Friday was the last day for the public to comment on a proposal to elevate I-10 near White Oak Bayou. Adam Bennett explained what the TxDOT plan is and why it faces opposition from neighbors.
This stretch of Interstate 10 in Houston that runs along White Oak Bayou today could be running above it in as soon as 5 years. TxDOT is considering raising the main lanes by more than 100 feet just west of downtown. They'd also raise the HOV lanes up to 30 more feet. Overflow from White Oak Bayou during Hurricane Harvey and tropical storms Allison and Imelda made the highway impassable. TxDOT officials say this project will help keep this key east-west corridor open for evacuations, first responders, and storm relief.
So areas where main lanes do not go over, like at Taylor and Houston Avenue, the I-10 main lanes will now go over that.
While it doesn't add vehicle lanes, it will add a nearly 22-acre detention pond and a shared use path that will tie into existing trails. Most of the project falls into City Council member Carlos Cisneros' district. She wrote a letter to TxDOT yesterday opposing the project. The council member said she's heard from more than 150 people, none of whom support the project. She brought up that same issue to TxDOT officials last month.
Because I need to hear someone who thinks this is a good idea, and I haven't heard one person say they think it is.
George says TxDOT extended the comment period an extra 6 weeks after hearing neighbors' concerns at a July meeting.
Every single public comment will be reviewed, and it will be taken into consideration.
Also Friday, Vice President Kamala Harris talked to astronauts from right here in Space City. She checked out the flight control room at NASA's Johnson Space Center during her 2-day Houston visit. Ron Trevino shared highlights.
And this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Vice President Kamala Harris is the head of the National Space Council, and as the astronauts phoned home today, she was there.
As an American who is a space nerd, I'm so thrilled to be with each one of you. And thank you for your excellence. Thank you for your service. How are you guys doing?
We are doing great. We are fellow space nerds, and we really appreciate you and the Space Council and everyone there, the support that you all have for the human spaceflight program.
The astronauts talked about their view of Earth from space, saying it makes them realize how fragile the planet really is. They talked about their work up there to help down here.
So things like learning how to grow plants without soil and being able to use that back on Earth to help with food security.
The Vice President went on to chair her second meeting of the National Space Council this afternoon and talked about the past 60 years of America's space program and its future.
Soon, for the first time in half a century, America will go back to the moon.
She says the mission of the Space Council is to promote and preserve America's leadership in space. Welcomed remarks in Space City, USA.
In a post-pandemic world, offices look different, and some offices aren't even offices at all anymore. Jason Miles showed us.
The tip top of the 1927 Niels Esperson building is its most characteristic feature, visible from various vantage points amid newer neighbors.
I've loved this building since the day I first saw it.
Dean Strombaum, a principal architect with Gensler, is now helping with a top-to-bottom transformation.
So it's important for a building like this that is so wonderful to begin with to have another life in a new form.
Recently revealed plans will see the historic property become an amenity-filled combination of new apartments and workspace.
Our goal is to be very flexible to respond to the market.
CEO Dougal Cameron's company, Cameron Management, owns the building and takes inspiration from pioneering female developer Mellie Esperson, who named the first tower after her husband. And this later addition is named for her.
We love the idea of curating part of Houston's history, but doing it in the same entrepreneurial style that it was started.
In a building nearly 50 years newer across downtown, a similar conversion is already underway.
It's a transformation from a 1960s office building to 372 housing units.
ARC3 architect Eddie Mastelers shared renderings of what apartments inside 1801 Smith, also known as 600 Jefferson, will look like once work by a Florida-based developer is done.
What we're looking at is a complete adaptive reuse of a building that was not being used very well prior to this.
As more and more people choose to live, work, and play in the same place, experts say rethinking office space may be the next big challenge.
Things will never be the same, and there's lots of conversation about what the future might be like. Truly, nobody knows.
Hope that helped you catch up on this past week and that you are ready for the next one. Remember, you can tune into KHU 11 on air, online via KHU.com and YouTube, as well as by using our KHU 11 Plus app on Roku and Fire TV. Have a great week.